Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over the market, let's go over Tesla, see what happened, what we can expect and all that good stuff. As usual, if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button, and nothing I say is financial advice. Do your own research, make your own decisions, but let's just jump right into it. The market is closing in about half a minute. The Tesla will be closing at just shy of $119, which is going to be a decrease of just about 0.8%, we'll say roughly, by the time it actually closes. So, I mean, relative to the market, definitely showing some weakness. QQQ is actually up 0.8%, right? So definitely showing some, not atrocious weakness, but definitely some weakness here to be seen. So what does this all mean? Is this good? Is this bad? Are we rallying still? Is it over? Are we going back down? What's the potential game plan here? Now, again, everything I say, as usual, is just a guess, right? No one knows for sure. This is just predictions, if you will. And just looking at basic technical analysis. Now, this is a little confusing looking here, but I'll try to make sense of what I have right here. Now, essentially, first and foremost, the overall thing here, you can see we technically did break out of this potential little downward channel that we were in. So we'll go ahead and delete the bottom line here, right? So we are technically outside of this downward channel. And I will go ahead and change this color to blue, so we can kind of differentiate it. Now, on top of that, we are potentially setting up again, a potential bull flag, right? From this rally all the way down pretty much at 100 up to this 120 level, which is a pretty decent rally actually, right? Just from here to here alone is already like wow, that's a 20% rally. Right, so we have this rally, and then we're potentially setting up a bull flag here. So touch point 1, 2, potentially at touch point 3 tomorrow, which will bring us to around 120, 119, something like that, right? Very possible. And then most likely get rejected. And it's definitely a possibility that we come back down to somewhere around the almost 110, like somewhere maybe around 110, 111, 12, 13, somewhere generally in that range, which will also give us this little gap fill right here, which will be fantastic. And that will be pretty good news overall, right? And then I think from there we could potentially hopefully bounce off of that and then maybe break out of this downward channel, which at that point will be somewhere along the lines of like 117-ish, let's say. Breakout, and then hopefully get this bull flag up, and then hopefully we move up another amount as this, which will be somewhere along the lines of pretty much again to that 140. A lot of things that I talk about are seemingly leading to that 140 level, which is my ultimate target, which I still think there's definitely a very decent chance of us going to that general level 140, maybe even as high as 150 to test the overall downtrend, not the overall, but the current kind of midterm, if you will, downtrend line being, of course, this yellow line, right? So that's something to consider. Now, so that's kind of the bull flag, and further to justify that I personally think this bull flag will form in a sense of like, well, maybe decently chance of us coming down to this general level around here to the gap fill to touch the bottom part of this bull flag one more time, is also because we are technically setting up a very micro bear flag, as you can see here. After this drop, potential bear flag, most likely go up to, again, potentially the top part of this bear flag, which can also lead to the top part of this bull flag, get rejected somewhere around this level of, again, about 120, let's say roughly, and then most likely move our way down to this level as well. And I personally think this will happen with CPI, which is, of course, on Thursday, which seems like a perfect, I guess, thing, if you will. I don't know what to call it, really. Perfect, like, macro thing, data point, if you will, whatever, scenario to pretty much have this situation that I have in my head play out, which would just kind of make sense. So in other words, I personally think we would go something like this, come back down, touch, and then most likely rally up and go to around that 140 level. Right? That's just the very basic, the very general way I personally see this playing out. So that's kind of what I have drawn over here, and that's kind of honestly what I'm personally foreseeing at the very moment. And I would not be surprised in case you're wondering about my personal trades, I did say yesterday I entered just a single put at 121. Some people were saying that I'm, now saying, oh, the stock has to go down because I have the one put. Guys, it was one put, first and foremost. Second of all, I benefit substantially more from the stock going up than going down. I'll tell you that right now. Let's just say that, right? That was just more of a short-term trade and just a very, very minuscule hedge. But yeah, essentially what I did was when the Tesla went down to around 117, somewhere around 117, I cut the put, made some profit on that, of course. Forgot what percent of profit it was. I think it wasn't anything crazy. It was only like a 10% profit, right? And then right around this level over here, around the kind of the 116-ish level, 115, 116, I did actually sell two puts, which is a bullish position for 110 and 105 for, I think in February 17th or something like that. the Friday of that. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, 17th. It was February 17th. And then pretty much just before the market closed today, I did buy back the 110 put, but I left the 105 because, you know, hey, I'm not too, you know, I have no issues buying shares at 105 even if I'm forced to. So it's like, whatever, I'll leave that there. But I bought back the 110 mainly because I still personally believe that there's a decent chance for us to come down to this level. And if we do, then I'll go ahead and resell it, right? That's kind of how I'm personally viewing it and how I'm looking at it. And if we don't, fantastic. I still have that one put that I'll ride up. And of course, the ultimate target for me being the 140 range is to ultimately sell longer dated calls against my shares, right? But that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. You can see on the 1 hour chart, let's take a look here very quickly. Still looking like a pretty healthy 1 hour chart, arguably a bullish divergence as well. As you can see, as this RSI is making higher highs and higher lows, you know, you can argue that the stock is technically making kind of higher lows here-ish, but not really, right? Because over here, when we went down to this level, you know, it was essentially the same low as here as the candle closed, but the RSI was higher. And now we're at the same level as we were here. RSI is also higher. So the RSI is definitely making not the most convincing bullish divergence I've ever seen, but definitely a bullish divergence, right? It's definitely nothing to laugh at, that's for sure. The daily one is looking a little more convincing in my opinion, which is arguably a better sign actually, which further implies that the short-term movement, you know, definitely seems like it might be losing a little bit more steam faster. However, the overall time frame, like this longer time, the movement, if you will, which, you know, again, I think can last maybe up until earnings roughly, which is another 2 weeks or so. On the daily, you know, it does seem a little bit more convincing that this bullish divergence is playing out. So far, not too shabby. But like I said before, ladies and gentlemen, it's extremely important to remember that we are still very much in a downtrend, right? Until we break this yellow line, I am still overall a fair amount more bearish than bullish. If we happen to break this yellow line without collapsing back within it, like the next day or two, let's say, or something like that, or better yet, let's say, for instance, if we break this yellow trend line, come down, retest, and then, you know, something like that, or like even before this like second part happens, if we come back down, retest, and kind of start holding around here, and I start seeing movement going back up, right, or something along the lines of that, where it's like this breakout ends up kind of being solidified as, yeah, it actually is confirmed. That to me would be pretty bullish, and that would make me still overall bearish, but definitely a lot less bearish, right? But again, very important to remember, Tesla technically is still in an absolute downtrend until this red line is broken. It doesn't mean that we can't go up to it, but essentially what I would see is if this yellow line is ever broken to the upside, right? And like I said, you know, we go above it, we kind of hold above it, potentially retest successfully, whatever. Then to me, the main target would be, you know, again, pretty much just the levels after that, right? You know, for instance, I would definitely be targeting for like 180 for sure, if that were to happen. That would, without question, I think happen, 160, 180 for sure. Potentially even as high as testing this red line up here, which was the you know, potential kind of area that we were holding several times here, held it several times here. Had a couple of false breakdowns overall, but, you know, ultimately it would bring us back up to around almost like 220, 230. Again, that's just like a very kind of optimistic look. And this doesn't even come into the equation until this yellow line is broken. Only then can we even remotely begin to discuss going up to like a 220, right? Up until this yellow line is broken. Okay, it will at some point, but I mean more of like if it will happen, let's say this month, right? Again, I personally don't think it will. I'll be very surprised if it does. It doesn't mean it won't. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to or whatever. Anything is possible in this market. But again, just want to make it very clear, I don't think it will, and I do think that we will come up to this yellow line again, 140 to 150, somewhere around that range. Most likely get rejected, and then at the very least come down to set up a double bottom at 100 once again, if not potentially go even lower to sub 100. That is my overall personal look at the very moment, and the reason I think that'll be good is because personally, what I foresee happening on top of that is, in theory, if we were to do more or less what I personally think will happen, which is come up here, retest, most likely get rejected, and let's say come down to somewhere around right here, let's say 80 bucks as an example, right? Personally, what I think on the RSI is going to happen is, you know, it'll probably still go up a bit higher like this. This is where we get to like that 140 level, and then we come back down to let's say 80, and it'll probably come down to somewhere around like here, give or take, right? So even though the stock went substantially lower, the RSI will most likely make a pretty sizable higher low overall, and that to me will be pretty much a solidified bullish divergence, which we can definitely start, you know, getting excited about once that does happen, if of course it actually does happen. But that is essentially what I'm currently seeing. We have the 21 EMA not too far above us as well, guys, so keep that in mind. We have the Bollinger Band starting to slowly look to curl, right, which I can definitely see happening around these levels as well. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, right? But you can see we are approaching the white line as well, which is actually only a 130. But again, not, you know, it's not, you know, surprising to potentially go above the white line, like you can see here, you can see here, right, which is kind of what I think will happen here as well, which will pretty much take us to 140, something like that, right? That's kind of what I'm personally foreseeing. So we'll see what actually happens with that. We are still above the 5 and the 10, I believe, at least. Let me check this out very quickly. Yeah, we're still above the 5 and 10. Actually bounced off of it arguably right here today, which is not too bad at all. That is a pretty decent sign so far, so good. So we'll see if that ends up holding as well. But yeah, ultimately that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. Again, would not be surprised if CPI forces us down on Thursday, potentially to retest this bottom part of this potential little bull flag setting up, which again, if this bull flag does play out and break out, will pretty much take us to about that 140 level. And then from there, I think we get rejected at the yellow line roughly. Most likely fall back down to the very least a double bottom at 100, if not sub 100. Most likely use that situation to set up a bullish divergence. And then I think that will be honestly potentially the bottom for Tesla. And then I think we can look forward to maybe a little bit more of a prosperous second half of this year. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing, guys. So let me know what you think down below. If you enjoyed the video, find it useful, helpful, informative, whatever, don't forget to hit that like button. And yeah, that's it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next updates. But I think tomorrow will be pretty much a nothing burger day. I don't think tomorrow will be anything too exciting. So most likely a boring day because it'll just be essentially in anticipation of CPI on Thursday. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow. Peace.